I'd like to call to order the February 15th meeting of Judicial and Public Safety. A roll call, please.
Chair Renahan.
Here.
Member Chaplin. Here. Member Covert. Here. Member Dessart. Here. Member Eckhoff. Here. Member Garcia. Here. Member Kajewski. Member Ozog. Here. Member Pachalski. Member Schwarzy. Member Selman. Member Zay.
Great, thank you. We have a quorum. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Great, thank you. So I'm very excited today to hear from our presiding judge, Kavita Thanakar, this morning on the great accomplishments happening over at the Focus Court, the Drug Court and Veterans Court. She's done amazing things and has, I guess, been a requested speaker all over the state. So I think we're going to hear some great information on how we're helping residents in our judicial system. I think we can all be very proud of that. So thanks to Suzanne Armstrong, the court administrator, also for making sure that we are all informed. So then a couple things just as far as background, I wanted to let everyone know on the sheriff's vehicle request. I did check in with Chris Snyder, DOT, also with Jeff Martinowitz, CFO. And just so you know, there's 178 vehicles total in the, well, excluding specialty vehicles in the sheriff's fleet. So based on 12-year use of life, 15 vehicles aging out annually is in line with expectations, something the CFO is comfortable with, something the sheriff budgeted for, and in fact, the request came in under budget. So just as a background on that one. And also, you'll note an additional appropriation for the crime lab. This funding is not coming out of the general fund. It's a special revenue fund that has money in it. It was not allocated to budget, but will cover upgrades, server, software for the crime lab. I think it's a resource we're very lucky to have and support with our law enforcement capabilities. So moving on, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of
So moved.
February 1st, 2022. We have a motion and a second. Questions, comments, additions? All in favor? Aye. All right, those pass. I'll take a motion to approve JPSP 6622, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order CDWG for upgrading evidence management software for the crime lab. The sheriff, $41,809.22. With a motion, who was the second? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. I'll take a motion on JPSP 6722, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order to Curry Motors Frankfurt. This is 1 2022 Ford Transit 350 van and 17 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility hybrid vehicles, not to exceed $735,000.29 for the sheriff's office. We have a motion. We have a second. Any comments? Yes, Member Garcia.
Just quick question. I just, of course, have to do my normal spiel is that I'm excited it has hybrid vehicles in there. So I'm glad that we're making those steps forward in trying to be more sustainable. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. You are always keeping us in mind. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That is approved. I'll take a motion to approve FIR 7522 resolution acceptance and appropriation of U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, Adult Drug Court and Veterans Treatment Court, $616,373 for probation and court services. We have a motion. We have a second. Questions, comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. I'll take a motion to approve FIR 8322 resolution additional appropriation for crime lab fund, $20,000. We have a motion. We have a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. I'll take a motion to combine transfers 8A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. These are again continuation of cleanup. We have a motion. We had a second. Yes. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve these budget transfers. 8A, $824 for the law library. 8B, $2,000 to pay outstanding FY21 invoices for the state's attorney. 8C, $6,682 to cover overtime for the coroner. 8D, $5,796 for repair and maintenance of security cameras for campus security. 8E, $52,010 for public safety federal law enforcement treasury fund. 8F, $1,594 for attendance at drug prevention training and $3,405 for vehicle tracking services. again for public safety and drug traffic prevention. 8G, $73,854 to cover negative balances for mattresses that were covered prior to 3/3/21 that were originally allotted for COVID for the sheriff. And 8H, $100 to cover negative balance for the sheriff merit commission. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Those all pass. I'll take a motion on consent item 9A, county contract to, this is to decrease and close $24,258.17 for probation court service. We have a motion. We have a second. Questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And I'll take a motion on consent item 10A, county contract issued to Microgenics to decrease by $27,285 and close for probation court services. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. And moving on to 10B, consent item, will take a motion on county contract 48521, serve sentinel offender services to decrease and close $38,572.84 for probation. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to receive and place on file the Public Defender's Office January 2022 monthly statistical report. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. That is received and placed on file. And with no further ado, I'd like to invite presiding Judge Epidemic over to the podium. And we will hear for information on drug and veterans court update. And, you know, I think everyone has this, Jason, yes. Everyone's been sent if you want to follow along on your laptop. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Renahan and the JPS committee for having me here this morning. My name is Judge Kavita Thanakar, and I've been a judge here in DuPage County for the last 4 years. And I've spent almost the last 3 years presiding over the focus and drug court. So I'm very excited today to share some important news of a grant that we've received that I think will really revolutionize a lot of the programming that we already have in place. So the grant that we've received comes from the U.S. Department of Justice and the Bureau of Justice Administration, which is an arm of the DOJ. And the award is specifically for our drug court and veteran court programming. As you may know, we have several specialty courtrooms here in DuPage County. We have 3 specific ones. I preside over the drug court and focus. Focus again stands for First Offender Call United for Success. That is for our first offenders that are charged with a felony drug possession case. We also have the mental health program, which comes through MyCap, and a specific court for our veterans. Today, I'm going to focus, quote unquote, specifically on the focus courtroom and the drug court program. So Focus Court was started back in 2018 when there was a need to really get a hold of and get ahead of our opioid epidemic. And so at that time, Chief Judge Guerin started a specific courtroom where all of the Class 3 and Class 4 possession cases for first-time offenders would come to a specific courtroom. The purpose of that being that there was a team in place that would deal with these cases in the same way. We deemed, or we thought at some point, that these cases were low risk, low need offenders because they were the first time getting caught in the system. And that's not necessarily the case, but we do have specific programming, meaning specific probation officers and training that these defendants receive in this courtroom. My goal in this particular program is to really follow restorative justice and give these offenders a second chance so that they don't become felons in our system for a first-time offense. Now, I will tell you, on a Class 4 felony, the maximum penalty that that person can face is 3 years in the Department of Corrections, and on a Class 3, it's 5 years. So we're talking significant amount of time in our system, if they weren't funneled through this courtroom in the appropriate way. The types of cases that we're seeing, obviously they're possession of a controlled substance, but they're paired usually with a DUI, domestic battery, a theft, some other charge that has brought this person in the system, and then the drugs have been recovered. Types of controlled substances, we're seeing a lot of heroin, a lot of fentanyl, cocaine, meth, LSD, PCP, you say it and it is back. And it's in my courtroom. And we have a fantastic probation department that's able to test for all of these substances. So that's about 4 days out of my week, we have the focus court. And then one day, that's on Thursdays, we call it Therapeutic Thursday. We see the high risk, high need addict. And I say that because these are individuals that have many felonies in their background and have had a substance use disorder for many years, sometimes upwards of 30 or 40 years. And so now we are working with these individuals in a very different way. They're seeing me in court once a week, twice a week, very often, and it's a very structured program to hopefully get them on track, get them the help they need, and not commit crimes. The thought is, if we don't get these people in our programs, if they're going to burglarize my home, then they may burglarize your home. And so we want to cut that cycle as early as we can. And again, I have a dedicated staff of 9. We meet every week and we go through every single case that's on the docket for that Thursday so that we have an individualized plan for each person. The drug court has been certified by the Illinois Supreme Court. It's the first time in DuPage County's history that that certification was received. I received that certification in 2020. And so we continue with that certification for 3 years, and then we apply for recertification. Oh, I include this graphic because it's something that I tell people in my courtroom all the time. That's how deadly fentanyl is. You need just a sliver of it to overdose and not exist anymore. What we're finding is that fentanyl now, it's a synthetic drug that comes from overseas. It is either laced with another drug or it's being used to cut drugs. And so you'll find it most often with heroin, with cocaine, but even in vape pens that individuals tend to use thinking that that might be a safe alternative to a controlled substance. The looks on people's faces when I tell them that they've tested positive for fentanyl is harrowing because no one intends to take fentanyl. So it is something that's here, and that's why the caseload in particular in my courtroom has tripled. Along with the pandemic and other reasons, but fentanyl is a major contributor to why our caseload is increasing. So one of the best things that I get to do is I get to collaborate with all the departments in DuPage County. I work very closely with the state's attorney's office, with Sheriff Mendrick, with our health department and probation department. So this was an example that I presented at the Regional Judicial Opioid Conference, and that was for covered 9 states in the US, and I was the representative for the state of Illinois. So they pick one program, and this was one of the reasons that we got chosen, is that we have such a collaboration amongst our departments that our programs are working really well now, but even during COVID. So for example, if I'm ordering someone in court to get medically assisted treatment, these are the types of medications that help wean someone off of a controlled substance, usually heroin. Our jail and our health department were in conjunction even during COVID to make sure that people were getting this medication. And so that's one of the reasons that we have been nationally recognized. So just some fun stats. I'm a numbers girl. The opioid epidemic, and I call it a pandemic, is not going anywhere. We now are deeming it a pandemic on top of a pandemic. As you can see, the numbers are just scary and not ending anytime soon. And there's a lot of reasons for that. COVID obviously did not help. And then with the invention, I guess, of these synthetics and drugs that are far more deadly than ever before, we're finding that the hook on the opioids is much stronger. And I'm sure these are just ripped from the headlines. So this is sort of an everyday thing where we're seeing headlines of how the opioid epidemic is really plaguing our society. And I say DuPage County in particular, we're the second largest county and we're not immune from this epidemic. So now to the good news. In all the programming that we do, when I took this courtroom over in 2019, it was very important for me to seek funding. And I say that because this is an epidemic and it is a pandemic. There's a lot of funding that's out there. And so I don't know why it wasn't sought before, but I do know that it's there and it's sort of ripe for the picking. We were lucky that we started with a few local grants that we were awarded. And when I took this team over, one of the things I developed was a further grant team. We don't have grant writers particularly assigned to the judiciary. So it was important for me to get the right people on board. And two of those folks are here today, which is Tim McGavin, our Deputy Director from Probation, and Sharon Donald, who does our finance for probation. Grant writing is not easy. It's almost like a second job, but it was important because I know with this plague sort of affecting the country that there are a lot of agencies that want to help. And so we formed the team and we're able to get, like I stated, 2 grants. One was in the amount of $25,000 and another $50,000. But the federal grant system is so different. It's very complicated and it's very particular in who they actually give money to. DuPage County being more of a wealthy county and compared to counties throughout the US, we didn't know if we would ever qualify for one, but that didn't stop us. So in January of 21, we saw an opportunity that was put out by the Department of Justice, and it was very specific to drug courts and veteran courts. And it was either to help supplement or start a new part of the programming. And so we saw this opportunity to get additional funds for all the great work that we'd already been doing. Part of what I did in researching these grants is I looked to see all of its public records. So I looked to see what other counties and states had received money and why. And what I noticed was that federal money usually likes to attach to something that they can see and feel. So to me, that's brick and mortar. It would be some sort of building for treatment or housing, something that they could see the actual funds being used. And so with that, we developed the idea of a recovery community center where individuals could go. It would be a safe haven, a little bit more relaxed and not so clinical as a treatment facility. And they could still get all of their services, whether it was treatment, mental health counseling, recovery coach services. And that's where the idea was born. So we had submitted for a federal grant the year prior and did not receive it. But the good thing in doing that is that we learned the practice of submission of a federal grant. That included getting the federal tax ID number, the filing of it, and even writing it. It's not, like I said, it's not an easy endeavor. So after several writes and rewrites of this grant, it was submitted in April of 21. And then December 16th, we got the wonderful news that we in DuPage County had received this grant of $616,373 to be used over the next 4 years for our drug court and our veterans court. So why is this important? Funding matters for specialty courts because these are alternative restorative justice courtrooms. They are allowable by statute, but if the funding doesn't exist, then they don't exist. For me, having sat in this courtroom and presided over it and seen all the people that have come through this courtroom, a lot of success stories, some not so successful, there is a need for advanced programming, especially in a county as successful and large as DuPage, we should be the leaders in a lot of ways in this field. So with that grant money comes advanced programming. I've already mentioned the recovery community centers. We'll be partnering with different agencies to get those up and running. Recovery coaches, which we deem to be almost like life coaches for our participants, peer mentors in veterans court, because it's different when one vet speaks to another vet. There's a continuity there. We're able to collect data and continue with medically assisted treatment, employment services, and then even training for our own staff. We have to be aware of what the trends are, what is allowable, not allowable. And that even starts with me as a judge. I do continuing education for this particular courtroom every year. And then what we found is that one grant can lead to another. You get some credibility and viability when they see your program and your county in the news. It's a big deal. And like I said, it's public record. So everyone knows that we've received this grant. Now they're going to look further to see what we do with it and how successful we are. But DuPage County now is on the map, which leads me to my last point, which is with this notoriety comes an important seat at the table. DuPage County was never really a part of state policymaking when it comes to this area. After receiving certification, I was then asked to sit with 3 other judges, and this is a statewide committee, so it's only 4 judges on this committee, to lead the Illinois Problem Solving Committee. And that's through the Illinois Supreme Court. With this committee, we decide what sort of training all the judges in the state receive, what sort of training all probation officers receive, and where statewide funding will go. So it's important now that, again, DuPage has this seat on this important committee. When this committee expanded, they asked me if there was anyone else I'd like, and I said, yes, I have 2 others from DuPage County to sit on this committee. And so I brought on 2 probation officers who sit, one sits with me on the general committee, and then there's a second data committee that's important again for funding. And so now we have 3 seats at the table. And again, that sort of snowballs. With that, I was able to establish a national partnership with the Office of National Drug Control and Policy, which is an office, executive office for the president. And we've had the head of that agency actually zoom in and speak to our drug court participants. And because of that, then we were recognized at the state or the national conference. So last year in Washington, DC, this is a conference that houses maybe 70,000 people that come from all over the country. And DuPage County was mentioned for their efforts in combating the opioid epidemic. And then with that came my opportunity to speak at the regional conference, which again includes 9 different states. And because of the work that we've done in DuPage, we were the representative for the entire state of Illinois. So with that, I thank you for letting me speak. It's important work that we do that we need to continue. And at this time, I'll welcome any questions.
Vice Chair Buchowski.
Thank you. I just have a comment and then a question. I think it's great that a judge takes the initiative to write a grant and get $616,000. So thank you for that. And that was something that's unbelievable because grant writing is very difficult. I do a lot of immigration law, and possession of anything is a death sentence for any of my clients who are looking to get resident status. When you're in this program, are you pleading guilty and then at the end it's dismissed?
So there's 2, I appreciate your question. We deal with this issue in the courtroom all the time with people who aren't citizens. So in the focus courtroom, which is again, the class 3, class 4 drug possession cases, they do plead guilty, but if they're successful in that program, they're sentenced to 2 years of what's known as a second chance or 410 probation. The conviction's vacated, the proceedings are dismissed. It's as if it didn't happen. In drug court, it's a little bit different because I'm getting people who have many felonies in their background. A lot of them are class X sentencing eligible, they enter into a contract with the state's attorney's office. And part of that contract is either a full dismissal of their case at the end of the drug court program, or time served, meaning the time that they spend in drug court serves as their probationary period. So the plea of guilty in the beginning is the accountability, and it's the allowance of entry into the programs. But I will tell you the success rate is very high, in that I would say most people then are not walking out of my courtroom with a felony.
So when you get 410 probation and you successfully complete the program, the conviction is vacated and the charge is dismissed, correct?
Correct.
But that person's still been arrested and he still pled guilty. It's just because of the legal system, it's like forgiven. Is that the right word or something?
Yeah, the vacating of that conviction, I think, is the biggest part of it, because now you're not a convicted felon. The plea of guilty and, the processing of the person upon arrest, would happen, I think, whether it's an aggravated traffic offense all the way to a felony. And there are ways, obviously, to expunge some of those things. But the deal that they get, I would say, for lack of a better word, is the ability to work, to get housing, to do all of the things that you would if you weren't a felon.
If I complete this, can I get that expunged then, even if it's a felony?
It would depend on.
Let's take a possession case, because I see that all the time. So if I,
It's for Donna, so.
no, that's true. But is it?
I think there's a client
Am I
underlying
able to
this.
expunge a class 3 felony for possession after I've gone through this program?
You could, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, great. I think I saw Member Eckhoff next, and then we're going to go to Covert Garcia.
Well, thank you for all your work on this. I remember when I first got elected to the board, Mr. Zay and I went to the drug court graduation ceremony. So I know DuPage County for a long time has been leading the state, I think, in specialty courts. And I'm looking forward to one day that we have an elder court, sort of what Cook County's got, because there's a lot of fraud perpetrated on elders. It was the one important factor, I think, in your drug court that is going to, I think, over time become very apparent, is that the overdose from drugs and the suicide rate during the pandemic, I think, has had a much bigger impact on life expectancy in the United States as compared to COVID-related deaths, what's referred to as COVID-related deaths. So it's great that we've got a court that's addressing that issue. Because like I said, I think it's a much bigger impact on society than anything else. So thanks for your work.
You're welcome.
Member Covert.
Thank you. Thank you so much I just want to say thank you for taking out your time and presenting to us today. A lot of the information you presented was very informative, and I think we learned a lot today. We learned something new. And, coming from I used to have a nonprofit before, so I know the grant writing process is very cumbersome and time consuming. So I do appreciate that work, and thank you for getting us the help that we need in the county.
Member Garcia, followed by Chaplin, followed by Ozark.
Thank you so much for coming here tonight. I appreciate the hard work you're doing. I also was able to attend a MyCap graduation, and just listening to the people who have been in the program and how hopeful they are now, and you can tell that they're like either on their way to work or they're because it was a Zoom one, and they're just have such hope in their lives. And I know that I worked over at the correctional center, with Justice DuPage, and I've talked to some of the people there, and they're hopeful to get into this program because I know that this will lead, as you said, to restorative justice. And they give them another chance at life. So I really appreciate that work that you're doing there. I have a very silly question. I'm not sure you can answer it or not. You showed the picture of the penny and the fentanyl. Why is fentanyl being put in there if it's basically, I just don't understand what the purpose is of fentanyl being put into the drugs if it's actually killing the users that are buying it. I just can't quite get that around my head.
So it's not a silly question. It's actually a question I think that's asked often. I think on some level it's not intended. I think on some level it is intended. So because it's coming from overseas and it's a synthetic, I don't think that when it was first introduced, people actually understood the power of it. Fentanyl and carfentanil is a separate analog of fentanyl, and it's much more powerful. That same amount of carfentanil that I showed in that image is enough to take down an elephant. So it's sort of this weird phenomenon, because you're right. If the intention is to further promulgate or spread this practice, they're not doing a great job. But I think now it's so pervasive that the intention has gone away, meaning they probably didn't even intend for it to get to this point.
I'm gonna go
Thank you.
Chaplain, Zay, I'm sorry, I'd forgotten you, and then Ozark. And then Desart.
Thank you so much. So,
You're
and thank you for the great presentation. It was really eye-opening. I know you said that the opioids have tripled since you've been on the bench. So, and I know that part of that's the COVID, I'm sure that's increased that. And do you see that going down anytime, or?
You know, and that's a great question. I thought about that. I've been thinking about that, because it is sometimes feels like this endeavor where there is hope, but it's almost not enough hope. I think programming like what we're doing helps tremendously. I will tell you that the word spreads like wildfire in the jail of, you know, people wanting the drug court program and how do they get in and what can they do, and they want help. And it's a sad thing, because it affects what I see is anywhere from an 18-year-old to someone in their mid-60s is probably the age range in my courtroom. And it's all walks of life. So it's not specific to anyone or anything. What I have found that has been helpful, and this comes from a lot of research and a lot of programming, is really getting to the root of the problem. And it's always trauma-based. I will say that very confidently, that there's some sort of trauma that gets lodged pretty early on that's not addressed. And then the controlled substances are used to numb that trauma. So we are working very hard now on the mental health portion of it as well. So I have people in the courtroom that I deem to have co-occurring disorders. It's mental health and substance abuse at the same time. The substance abuse is more prevalent, which is why they're in my courtroom. But if we don't get to the root of the problem, then it's just that vicious cycle. And you see that in other disciplines as well with domestic violence. So if you don't sort of treat why it's happening, then it escalates. So we're trying to identify so that we can bring those numbers down. I will say again that our probation department does a fantastic job, whether it's training, whether it's oversight, whether it's just caring. They do a tremendous job on the front lines. You know, I get to see the response of what they do, but we're getting there.
Okay, and then one other question. So
Sure.
you said that a lot of these people that come to drug court, it's because of another charge, like of domestic violence or DUI or something like that. So how are those charges treated? I mean, what happens with the domestic violence aspect of it or the DUI aspect of that?
So it depends. If it's a focus case, meaning where it's more of a true criminal prosecution, those cases are either dismissed or they're pled out to. The DUIs are not being dismissed for a lot of good reasons. But they're also getting a second chance on that charge as well, for the most part. The reason I say that they're accompanied by another charge is because you can possess or use controlled substances and no one would ever know. It's usually when that first charge happens that an officer is alerted to the fact that someone may be under the influence in a different type of way. And then the drugs are recovered, whether it's on the person or in the vehicle. But the accompanying charges is really our alert system. And we're almost thankful for those because that's how we eradicate and help treat this.
Thank you. And just you know, I love that you're, you know, working with the court and the jail and the health department. I mean, I know our health department is really outstanding. So just a great job that you're doing. I think you represent the county and the state very well. So keep it up. And, you know, maybe maybe once a year you come in and give us a little update. I think that would be really great. Sure. So thanks, Chair Renahan, for having this presentation.
I'm getting along to members A, Ozog, Schwartzy, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Your Honor. Just as Member Eckhoff has said, when we started these programs many years ago, we didn't know what to expect. You know, it was new, and to see what you've done with the certification, the grants, and the state and national recognition, I just can't thank you enough for your leadership on this. Obviously, it makes a difference. You see it every day, but it actually changes people's lives, gives them a second chance. And to see the way you've elevated it here over the last several years, we just appreciate your leadership, and it means a lot here in DuPage County. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, great. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Honor, thank you so much for all of your hard work. This is really important. I have two questions. First of all, I'm the mom of a Navy veteran. Do you ever look for volunteers? Is there a volunteer program for the peer counseling?
For the peer counseling, yes. So I don't run the Veterans Court, but I do know that they're constantly looking for that sort of peer mentorship. Again, that's a connection that can't come from anywhere outside of that world. And so they're always looking for people that are similarly situated or have been similarly situated. So I can give you the contact of maybe how your son could connect with the program.
Yeah, that's, you know, he knows other veterans as well.
Right.
So everyone has to re-enter. So that's a challenge. But when you've got a substance issue, that's beyond very difficult. My other question was, you noted the increase, especially in the last 2 years, of fentanyl being laced with cocaine, heroin. Did you say vape pens? And my other question is, obviously, I mean, we have legalized marijuana now, but I'm going to assume, this is completely not my knowledge, but I'm going to assume that there's still a street sale of marijuana. Have there been any connections?
There is. So I do.
And explain the vape pen issue.
Sure.
I mean, that seems like a new layer of usage, and I'm concerned in particular about marijuana because we know it's still being purchased
Right.
on the
So
street.
in regards to the vape pens, there's still a street sale of those items. And what that means is that you can get the pen and the cartridge separately. And what people can do is then fill that cartridge with anything and everything. And it's
Okay.
usually some sort of oil base that allows the vape to actually work within the instrument. But within that oil are all sorts of substances, synthetic and otherwise. And I've had individuals in my court who are pretty far along and again, unintentionally are vaping and then testing positive for fentanyl. Fentanyl is even being found. I had a young lady in court 2 weeks ago who said that she had just taken a Tylenol from her neighbor and tested positive for fentanyl. So you can press pills. There's all sorts of ways of getting this synthetic into other substances.
So illegal pill, like opioid pill type of that kind of whatever marketing, I don't know what to call it, but that sort of thing is out there too.
Oh, it would
You
blow
name
your
it.
mind.
Okay.
It really would. You can
so
press
much for your
pills.
presentation today.
Oh, you're so
It really
welcome.
impacts every corner of our community. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Member Schwartzy.
Thank you very much. I've seen the amount of deaths overdoses themselves have gone up. Thank you. Tenfold. And it's obviously a wonderful and needed program, But in my profession, it felt like people felt safer to be able to use because of that Narcan. In your role, have you ever had any conversations or heard anything along those lines that, hey, this Narcan makes me feel less in danger or anything along those lines?
I'm not sure I've heard it in that way. I mean, obviously Narcan is a safety net and that's what it's designed for. Our health department does an amazing job of training individuals and their families and loved ones on the use of Narcan because it is a life-saving instrument. Can anything be abused? Of course. Do people sometimes feel that that's a safety net to the point of usage? I'm not sure that I see that on a daily basis. I do know that even during COVID, Narcan is so important that the health department had a drive-through Narcan effort where you could get your Narcan and other medications for that safety reason. I personally have seen Narcan save many people in my courtroom. I had an individual who overdosed 4 times in one day, and my team and my staff were on that call with his family from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. And I'll never forget it was during COVID. And the franticness and the desperation of his father, who was on the phone with our probation officer, and I also got on the phone to save this individual. Narcan saved him in a lot of ways. Would he have used regardless of Narcan? Probably. But that life-saving instrument is why he's around today. He's about to graduate my drug court program soon. He's married, he has a child, he's working. He's in school. So it's all the things that we want people doing. A lot of times people aren't ready for the structure and the treatment that we offer because it is asking someone to change every single thing about themselves. So I hope I answer your question. I think that Narcan is a necessity. It is.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Obviously, we're all very interested in what you're doing over there at the drug court. And I have to say, I think you're nothing short of a game changer. I mean, I think connections are being made that you're already telling us are saving lives. And it's just amazing to see that this is all happening in DuPage County. So when you say you're going to revolutionize programming, I believe you. And restorative justice is also, so very important. So I hope you will, as Member Chaplain suggested, report back to us in JPS and let us know how it goes. And, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And with that, do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Member Chaplain.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to thank Sheriff Mendrick for taking the death threats against State Representative Deb Conroy seriously and providing her with security detail. A few weeks ago, I was at an event and State Rep Conroy was there and there was a sheriff's deputy outside the door. So, you know, I just think the level of professionalism from the Sheriff's Department, you know, was very good. And again, you know, I really want to thank the sheriff for taking those threats seriously and providing that extra security detail.
All right, thank you. I think that's a great point. We're all pulling in the same direction, right? Despite all this crazy politics. So any other new business? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right, second, all in favor? All right, thank you. We are adjourned.